I appreciate all of y'all for joining in on a Saturday. If y'all could drop where you from in the chat. I know some people already have. But we got a lot of folks coming from Europe. I see Canada, the UK, Portugal, all across the US. One thing I remember as I see like all the spots that people are coming from is that when our struggles are international, they're much stronger because our collective struggle is a global one. Briefly to get started, just like a grounding that I come from a practice of disability justice. Some of the grounding that we do is to think about how we're thinking about things. We're not disconnecting the body and mind. So there's an image of Mumia Abu Jamal, political prisoner out of Pennsylvania. For the head, it's like what we're thinking. Our heart, there's a Palestinian flag in the shape of a heart. It's how we're feeling about what's going on, how we're feeling about Josh, how we're feeling about other people that are locked. And then there's wills for like, what can we do about it, the action steps. So I use this as like somewhat of a guide. I do briefly want to just read off a statement from Josh just a couple of weeks ago in response to the murder of George Floyd, where he says, let's get this trending once again. Another Black man has been taken from us by white racist cops, and once again, they will see our power. I send my shout out to everybody out there fighting. I say to you, keep it going. The fight is going to get hard, but stay in the fight. We are Michael Brown. We are Eric Gardner. Let's fight. I can't breathe. Hands up, don't shoot. So for the folks that don't know or just learning about Josh, Josh is somebody that is on the front lines in St. Louis in 2014, directly after Darren Wilson murdered Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Josh left his house and didn't go back into his house for a few months, and was out in the streets every day leading young people. One of the leaders of the movement. One of the things I think about a lot in talking to Josh is the fact that we have a movement where some folks from our generation gained consciousness after what people in St. Louis did. And Josh is one of the people that are remaining in prison based off of his participation in the movement. There's a bunch of people that travel the world and talk about what they did in Ferguson, but rarely do people with large platforms, people that are heavily funded and have the power to actually support Josh's freedom, even lift Josh's name. So it's really on us as folks on the ground. A lot of people on this call are people on the ground, to continue to lift Josh's name, not only while he's locked up, but once he comes home, he's gonna need support, and he deserves support. He just turned 24 in November. So that means that he's been locked down in Missouri since he was 19. After the murder of Antonio Martin, just a bit of backstory. After the murder of Antonio Martin in St. Louis, there was a quick trip that burned. The only evidence they had to connect Josh to it was like a video of him trying to light a bag of chips on fire. So his being in prison is directly tied to his political activity. That's why we're referring to Josh as a political prisoner. He would not be there if he was not a part of a movement. By locking Josh, they attempted to set an example for what it is if you resist state violence and racist police in the US. So for this, I'm gonna go through like a few questions that like folks have when putting together the letter, or at least the ones that I've seen. After I go over the questions, I'll just play some music and folks can write, and then also drop other questions in the Q&A. As the music is playing, I'll collect those questions and then come back on and answer as many as I can. We'll also talk about a bit of other ways that we could support, and talk about some future actions. So I'm going to share the screen here. And all of this information could be found on Josh's website, which is freejoshwilliams.com. So the first thing want to go over is his parole hearing date. He got his 85% date. It's mid to late June. We don't know the exact date yet, but it'll be soon. Um, where do you send the letter to? You send the letter directly to Josh's address. So you address the envelope to him. He's collecting the letters and taking them to the parole board coordinator that's in the prison. Now, on the letter itself, don't direct that to Josh. You direct that to the Missouri Department of Corrections and the Missouri Board of Probation and Parole. The address is right there on the site. So this is maybe the, I don't know, like the 6th or 7th time we've done something like this. So Josh has received hundreds of letters already. The way that we're ensuring that it makes it to him is, one, he's trying to respond to everybody that he can. He has a job, he's in there working. He only gets paid $12 a month, but it's something that he does every day. So if he has time for it, energy for it, he does respond to folks. And another precaution that we're taking is, if you can, scan it, take a picture of it, and email it to freejoshwilliams@gmail.com. That's helpful for us to collect it, and then we're able to send it to him or physically give it to him in large portions. If you're from outside the U.S., you could definitely send a letter. The international port is huge for at least letting the DOC and the prison system know that people are watching outside the U.S. The pressure also forces them to move in a lot of different cases. Handwritten or printed, it's better to be handwritten. This is showing like that you take the time out your day. But if you can't write it by hand, you could also print it and send it to them. Some of the main questions is like, what if you don't know Josh? One of the things that I encourage you to do is to make more of a commitment to learning about him. There's articles online. We've collected some on the website. Hood Communist has some stuff on their website, which is hoodcommunist.org. Black Ink also has some on the website. There's a few different YouTube videos that has Josh talking and whatnot. But to learn more about him, it feels like you just have to do some more research. So in the letter, one of the biggest things is, if you are somebody with privilege, somebody with a title, with degrees, all of that is helpful if that's something that you're comfortable incorporating into the letter. Some other things that you put into the letter, and this goes beyond just this letter, but this is things to think about in the future for ways to support, is any way that you can provide material support. The parole board is looking for that as well, so they know he has a community behind him when he gets out. So that could be anything from reviewing his resume, helping him look for jobs, housing assistance, any type of skill building. If you have jobs, like if you want Josh to come speak somewhere, if you're at a university and want him to come visit, all of these things will help show them that he's able to be self-sustaining on the outside. Even though that's not the logic that we believe in, we understand that the parole board is looking for that type of energy. So some other ways to support. Josh loves comic books. You can send the comic books or any book for that matter directly from the retailer. So that has to go from whatever company that you're getting the books from directly to Josh's prison address. It can't come from you. He also enjoys and likes books about Black liberation, Black freedom. Another one of the things that Josh has continuously requested is pictures from Ferguson, pictures of himself, if you can find some. There's some online, and pictures of what's happening right now. The protest that and the rebellion that's happening right now has like lifted Josh's spirits. He talks about it all the time. He watches it on the news, but we know that he's only able to get mainstream news in there. So any type of pictures that you can send are huge for that. So one of the things that on JPay, it doesn't allow you to attach pictures for Josh's account. so you have to send those through snail mail. The Missouri Department of Corrections doesn't allow for you to have any type of writing that comes along with images. So if you send them a picture, it has to only be a picture. You can date it and put a name on it. That's it. That's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is a lot of the pictures that we might send probably won't make it to them. That's been the case in the past, but it's still worth an attempt, just in case it does make it through. Information on how to send money, you can send that through JPay, which is jpay.com. All you need is Josh's inmate number, which is his DOC number, which is also on his website, and you need that when you send his letter. JPay routinely blocks money, especially if we've done like fundraisers in the past where we have like a bunch of people send money to them, and they'll start to flag that. So what you'll have to do is call JPay. Sometimes they don't allow you to send it for like another 30 days. Oftentimes, they're able to process it over the phone. So just be aware that that's something that you might have to do. If you keep running into roadblocks like that, we have ways to get money to Josh, or reach out to freejoshwilliams@gmail.com and let us know. But before you do that, please try to go through all of the go through the phone number before you email us. We're setting up an account for Josh to transition from supporting him now to when he gets home. If you register for this, you'll receive an email with the update on that fund when it comes through. One of the things I'll ask is like people like be adamant about sharing that, be adamant about donating it. We know how hard it is when people come home from prison to get back on their feet. So this is something that I think that we should collectively easily be able to fundraise a bunch of money so Josh is straight when he gets back. If you want to organize a letter writing session, I encourage you to do that. I can drop in, or somebody else can get you connected with them that has some information on Josh to kind of go through this again. I'm recording this right now, so I could also send this out to you, and you're able to use that for whatever session that you're doing. I would say that it has to happen like super quick because the letters need to get sent. I would say by latest early next week. Um, Another thing that we've seen like a lot of requests for are artists, and trying to figure out like what they can do and what they should do. I would say do everything, do whatever your heart desires, any type of art to just raise awareness and put into the world that Josh exists and why Josh is locked is helpful. If you want to work with us in any capacity to help push it out, we're cool with that. Just send an email and let us know that that's something that you're looking to do. I see a couple questions in the chat. Is it more helpful to send money now, even though JPay takes a cut, or wait and donate it all to the fund for when he comes home? I would say that any money that Josh is getting now, he is also supporting other people that's locked with him. So it's always helpful to donate money now. He goes to the canteen every week. He needs things like shoes, food, all of the above. So if you can send now, I would say send that, and then also send it when the fund comes. A couple of people asked about including stamps for him to write back. You cannot send stamps through snail mail. Um, Through JPay, when you do send them a message, which you can email them, there's an option where you can pay for the return stamp. I would say do that. JPay stamps are, I think, 25 cents, and you can buy them in batches. It doesn't really reduce the price when you buy them in batches, but you can. Somebody mentioned about sending the letters, that it's urgent, and if they send it internationally, will it arrive on time? That I'm not sure of. I would say send it as soon as possible. And even then, still send it because there's a chance he doesn't make parole, and he will need those letters in the future. And someone asked if we send our letters separate from pictures of current events. Yes, you should send the letters separate. You can only send pictures, and nothing else. They won't accept it. And yes, you should send the photos separately as well. You can't send more than one photo at the same time, at least to my knowledge. Are there things not to include in the letter to the parole board? Yes. Any type of, I would say, I'm not sure how to define this, but any type of revolutionary talk is probably not going to be the greatest for parole board. I would say to focus on Josh's character, how Josh has helped you develop as a person. If you have a relationship with them, definitely talk about the friendship. Definitely talk about Josh's mentorship. Um, but do not send anything about uh, how his actions, I guess, in Ferguson was something that sparked you to write this letter outside of his organizing and his love for community and people. I see somebody dropped their email saying that if you want to send the letter, they're willing to compile those and send it from New York, and you can email them your letter. I will drop that again in the chat, and I'll put it um, on Josh's website. Is that's cool, or like the follow up email to this? Melanie, let me know. Okay, cool. And there is not a petition right now to free Josh that I'm aware of. Okay, I'm gonna go through a sample letter real quick, to show you possibly what to put into it. Some of the things to think about. Briefly touch on who you are, your background, your employment. You can add whatever you're comfortable with. Some of these things, I mean, we're talking to a parole board, so it is weighted. If you are in a position of privilege, then that does help. Um, your thoughts on his maturity and rehabilitation. The parole board is looking to see if Josh is rehabilitated. Even though that's not the language we use or the belief system that I have, that's something that the DOC is looking for. There's a video on Josh's website, about a minute and a half from a couple of years ago, from an interview where Josh is talking about uh, the night that the Quick Trip burned and his feelings on it, and then how he's grown since. So that might be a catalyst for some thought behind that. Um, Number three, your thoughts on his remorse for the offense he's convicted of. Again, I would refer to that video, and a couple of the articles that are on the website. Your thoughts on his chances for successful reentry into society, employment, and participation in society upon his release. This is one of the big things to think about, like some of the organizing that Josh was doing prior to going to prison, and how you can materially support him on the outside is also big. Um, just a few things about Josh, and I can answer some more stuff if people have questions. Try to drop it in the Q&A rather than the chat. Um, but Josh, like, he's talked a lot about cutting grass and wants to cut grass when he gets out. Before he went in, he used to do that for the people in his neighborhood. Um, he wants to be a part of a youth center when he gets out, whether that's starting one or just working at it. He was doing a lot of work with young people before he went in, and that's something that he's continuously brought up, is wanting to do. Um, Another one of the things is there's a bunch of literature out there about um, what it is for people to be convicted of crimes as teenagers. I would refer to any of the writing on LWAP. Uh, Let's Get Free Women in Trans Defense Committee has some stuff on their website, which I'll show another slide about juvenile lifers. A lot of that language could be translated to Josh's situation. He was 18 years old when it happened. Um, he started his prison system at prison sentence at 19 years old, and it's taken 5 years away from his youth. So any of us that are above the age of 25, 26, to in the letter reflect on how formative those years are, and how important those years are to building the foundation for the rest of your life. So those are just a few of the things I think about when writing this. And then really trying to convince them that he deserves, a second chance. Again, this is language and things that we may not believe, but this is what the parole board is looking for. Um, some more questions saying that if can you write to Josh directly, and not just write the letter to the parole board? And the answer to that is yes. Um, him hearing from people, again, like a lot of the information about what's going on in movements is limited. He's only able to see mainstream media, and then he talks to the people that he talks to, and whatever information is there is there. So what you can add is by just like writing him to let him know like you thinking of him. He's always looking for pen pals, always looking for people to talk to. So that could be done through email or it could be done through snail mail. I seen somebody found a petition that had 400 signatures last night. If you drop the link in the chat, I will put that in the follow up email too. And to write to Josh through email, it is not his freejoshwilliams at gmail.com email. It is the JPay system. So you can send message to him there. We refer to that as email. We don't have any social media accounts. The only thing we have is the website. Can you label the pictures? Yes, you could label it and put the date on it. But I would be careful with like what you write as the label. Um, do I have a link to the video I mentioned? Yes, it is freejoshwilliams.com and it is on the home page. And when you send the letters of support, you could also send a separate letter to Josh too. He's the one collecting that, so that's not a huge deal. Someone asked about their background as a psychologist. Yes, if you have any degrees that you would be viewed as an expert, I would say to leverage that and to talk about anything that you can to make the argument that Josh should be home. Okay, cool. Are you able to send greeting cards? The Department of Corrections doesn't have a um, clear guideline around like cards or stick paper. A lot of prison systems don't allow for that. What I would say is send it on regular paper if you can. If you wanted to send a greeting card, I would say just try it and see if it gets through. And yes, you're able to write Josh about the current protest. Again, whatever you write to DOC or send through JPay, the prison is reviewing that. So I wouldn't put anything in the messages that I wouldn't want the prison to see. Um, And also it's like super arbitrary, so there's really no way to tell what they're not gonna allow. They just won't give it to them, they'll send it back to you. So you'll know if it doesn't get through the majority of the time. Again, we're talking about somebody who is a political prisoner and is also facing repression inside of the prison. So we really don't have control of what gets in and out. If you're handwriting the letter to the parole board, do we need to include the parole board address at the top? And yes. One thing that you can add is committing to donating funds to Josh to support his transition back into the community. And you should assume that the prison does read all of his personal letters. They do read all of his personal letters. So, yes. We don't need any funding as organizers to do this work. We're doing this because we love Josh and we want to see him home and want to see him supported. And he is just as much as a part of our movements as the people out here. So, but I appreciate that. Josh is not allowed to receive gifts. He's only able to accept a few things like books, comic books. Um, as far as like clothing and all of that, that's stuff that he has to buy through the canteen or commissary. And by putting money on his books through JPay is the way that you could, yeah, I guess gift Josh with anything. I do want to let folks know about a couple of other people uh, in the prison that Josh is in. A couple of his good friends, Dawson and Guy, um, both, or Josh is requesting for us to also send them letters, send them encouragement. They're looking for pen pals, so if anybody's up for that, you can contact them the same. They have the same address as Josh, the same setup with JPay. All you need is their DOC numbers, which is on the website under an article about friendship, and it's right here on the screen now. Um, these are two people that has held Josh down. They look after each other, so this is another good, solid way and concrete way to support him. Um, I've seen the folks ask about other political prisoners or other people in prison that we could write to. Every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, uh, the Women in Trans Defense Committee, Let's Get Free, gathers on Zoom. It's like super informal. We kick it, play music, and we have a list of people to write to. Um, we write often to women in prison, but then depending on like what's happening, we pick a specific group every week. A couple of weeks we wrote to political prisoners. A couple of weeks we wrote to women over the age of 70. A couple of the weeks we wrote to people that were having birthdays. We have a list of folks there. The people there are in deep community with the folks on the list, so they can tell you more about what they're looking for, who's looking for a pen pal. That's one of the ways that you get connected to it is through the Instagram page, Women in Prison. Every Tuesday, the link is added there, so you're able to connect and join with us. And all of this I'll put in the follow-up email as well. Someone asked about the comics that Josh likes. I don't know what particular comics that he likes, but that might be a question that you could ask him through JPay. Somebody asked for clarification around the photos. Josh is not able to receive photos through JPay, only through snail mail. They can be printed on regular paper or real photo paper. Do I have example on books on Black freedom? That is acceptable. the Missouri Department of Corrections doesn't have a list of banned books. So I would anticipate some of the books not making it through. But he has been able to receive some things that I didn't think would get through. So I would say just send whatever that you're thinking of and see if it gets through, because they don't have the banned list. There's no way for us to really tell. Again, if you're receiving error messages with JPay, I would escalate through the phone number and figure it out there. They have a 24/7 system, so they can take our money whenever they choose to. And there is a percentage that JPay takes. That's just like a part of the program. Yes, send personal notes through JPay. Send the letters for parole through either handwritten or printed through snail mail. I don't know if Josh likes anime. Um, International supporters can send things through JPay. Um, the difference between JPay and snail mail is physically putting an envelope in a mailbox, and that's going through the postal service, and JPay is online. I'll try to collect the next time I talk to him a list of books that he's already read and put up on the website. Someone asked why our letters so powerful. Communication with our people on the inside is powerful. Um, yeah, so that's why I think letters has always been a part of um, the inside outside struggle, because it's one of our only ways to communicate outside of phone. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take a break from answering questions for like 5 minutes. If you have more questions, please drop them in the Q&A. We'll play some music. I'll come back, answer some more questions. And then from there, yeah, we'll get out of here. Again, I appreciate all of y'all taking time. I know Josh appreciates it. And it's super dope to see people from around the world. Okay, cool. So I see a couple questions that are important, and I appreciate that, Raven, for asking. Yes, Josh does believe in God, and faith is one of the things that he's talked about. Is keeping him together, and he has a strong faith. He often reads the Bible, so if that's something that you share with Josh, uh, I would say to incorporate that into the message, especially for the ideas around remorse and rehabilitation. Um, so that's a big one. Someone asked if would it be helpful for those of us who are in our late 20s, early 30s to compare our own self perceptions of maturity and how we feel so different from our 18-year-old selves? Yes, I would say that. Again, these may not be things that we believe in. I believe what Josh was doing in St. Louis was right, not only morally but just right. But the parole board doesn't see it that way oftentimes. And yes, you send if you want to send a book or a comic book to Josh, you send to his address. There's nothing that you should send to the Department of Corrections. Everything that you send goes to Josh. You only address the parole board letter to the Department of Corrections, but there's no need to send it to anybody to proofread. Josh is the person that is receiving all the letters, and he's reading them. we finally got legal support too, so that's like a huge victory. It took years, so he'll also be looking over them with his attorneys. If you're writing to Josh personally, would Xerox copies of political prisoner writing poems, for example, be acceptable? Do you think it would get flagged? Again, like I have no way of telling what would get flagged. It's all arbitrary. I will say that I just sent him like Gwendolyn Brooks uh, poems to prisoners, and that made it through, and some Etheridge Knight poems about poems from prison, and things like that make it through, and then other things get flagged. So it's really arbitrary. There's no deadline to send the letter. I'll just say ASAP. Um, he needs them here in the next week or so. Should we include his inmate number, his DLC number anywhere in the letter? Yes, just write where you put his name. And then on the envelope, you'll also have to write his DOC number on the envelope as well for it to get to him. Are people on parole expected to stay away from protests when they come back? People on parole are expected to be uh, to to not be criminalized. So anything that could get people criminalized, which is breathing, thinking, sleeping, walking. So I would say probably so. The songs that I'm playing, it's some Marvin Gaye and some Gil Scott Heron. Tef Poe, who was from St. Louis too, played some of his music, and T Double, who was also from St. Louis, and both were Ferguson frontliners. Someone says they don't know him personally, so they're worried about being able to properly attest to his character. Um, this is like where the at least reading to hear some of Josh's words are huge, and then just to talk about the ways that he inspired you, talk about the ways that him as a young person resisting and standing up and fighting for his people um, is something that you learn from, something that you did some reflection and wanted to do something based off the actions that he took. I don't know any of the vocational courses that Josh has taken while he's there. He's worked in hospice, so he has done care work for disabled, elderly prisoners. Um, but as far as the courses, I'm not sure if he's taken any. If you're younger and closer to Josh's age, I would say talk about the things that you do and the things that you enjoy, and make an argument that Josh should be deserving of those things as well. Is it acceptable to send photos through snail mail? Yes, that's the only way to send photos. And you cannot send more than one photo at a time, and you cannot send photos along with written letters. Photos have to be by themselves. Yeah, just regular stamps. Just one stamp will get it there if you're in the U.S. Internationally, I'm not sure. Yes, if you want to, again, you can scan the letter or take a picture of it and email it to freejoshwilliams@gmail.com, and that allows us to have like a backup copy, just in case. It's not necessary, but we are asking if folks are able to do that. And yeah, you could quote Josh any of the articles that you read, quoting him. is also big too. Somebody said that they read the interview you did with HuffPost. Um, so yeah, that could be a way to attest to his character. Josh works in hospice right now. And sorry, I was responding to someone asking when he worked in hospice. Can messages be written on the back of photos? No. The only thing that could be written on photos are possibly a name, possibly a label, and the date. Nothing else. The length is all up. The length of the parole letter is all up to you. Um, Someone talked about their experience in the legal system, and if you have an experience like that, you're on probation, you got your record expunged, or you just re-enter society. I would say definitely leverage that in the letter. That could be helpful. Yeah, scan and upload the parole board letters only. Don't send us y'all personal letters. Um, yeah. Somebody asked if it's cool to have children write to Josh. I think that Josh would enjoy hearing from anyone. Josh could respond to both physical letters and JPEG messages. Just keep in mind that we have been at this for uh, like super heavy over the past month, so he's getting a lot of personal letters, and it's probably difficult to respond through uh, physical letters. So one thing that you might be able to do is send him the physical letter because that's something that kills time. That's something that he enjoys, and then also send him a JPay message to let him know that you sent him there, and he could respond there if he wants to. To send a Word doc to the Gmail is cool, but we would prefer it be scanned or a photo be taken of it. We have Rachel. If you could email me so I could put it up in the follow up email, saying for people that can't get it to the mail themselves that they're happy to compile them through emails, then mail them out. So just to clarify, so you can scan and upload these letters to freejoshwilliams.com for those who would like them to be sent on their behalf. I will put that in the follow-up email because some people have volunteered, and I'd rather have it go through someone else than us. Is it better to send a letter from Egypt or Canada? I'm not sure that that matters. So I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know the correct answer. Sorry. Someone said when sending snail mail from Europe, Sweden in particular, to the U.S., it's possible to buy priority stamps to get there faster, and also make sure it's not being sent by boat because that takes forever. Emma asked if you can mention his faith in our letter to the parole board. Yeah, some other folks are dropping some links about stories to Josh, some recent ones in the chat. Also, some people have some. Uh, I'm not sure if that's a black-owned bookstore or if it's just a bookstore that supports Black voices, but that's also in the chat. Yeah. Also, some of the things that people are dropping in the chat, I'll send in a follow-up email. I'll do that by today or tomorrow. Yes, I'll send this recording out. So then you could post it to people that didn't make it. Are there more photos of Josh? Yes, there are some. Rather than us compiling them, I would say just Google his name along with St. Louis or along with Ferguson. There's at least 30 or 40 on Google. Since I'm the same age Josh was when he got to prison, are there ways I can use that in the parole letter? Um, yes, again, just to think about some of the things that you routinely do. Talk about maybe some of the things you're doing to set up your life. If you're thinking about going to college or you working, things that you enjoy. Um, Basically, to let them know that these are formative years that you're experiencing right now. Okay, cool. I'm gonna play maybe one more song and then uh, come back and answer any final questions, and we'll get off at that point. If people need to dip out, that's cool. I appreciate y'all for yeah, coming to kick it. All right, cool. There's just a couple questions, then we'll get up out of here. Is there a way to add money to an account at a black-owned bookstore so Josh could buy what he likes, or is that too hard to manage? I think that's a dope idea, and I'll be willing to work with somebody on that. Yeah, I would definitely be down to work on that to see if there's a way that we could just send money to a bookstore and then Josh could select what books and the bookstore sends directly to him. Um, I think that would be dope. So just send an email if that's something that you want to work on. Um, Handwritten versus type. Some research online say it's better to type and print because it looks more professional. Um, at least from my knowledge, the DOC likes to see that people are taking time out to do the handwritten letters. Um, and it helps promote the believability because Josh is going to be somebody that's delivering hundreds of letters to the parole board. And if all of them are typed, they might believe that it's coming from one source, even if we have different names, addresses, and whatnot. All right, cool. So yeah, I will leave us with some words from Josh. He sent this like a couple of days ago. Um, he talked a bit about how he felt about Trump calling protesters thugs, but he also went on to say, and I'll post this on the site. But to the people out there, I say to you, keep up the good fight. Y'all are standing y'all ground to the max, and I love every bit of what y'all doing. I love everybody out there, and I will post the rest on the site. Cool. I appreciate y'all for kicking it. And if yeah, if you think of other ways to support and I can support that, let me know. Just send an email. All right, everybody, take care.